Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Anna and I am a macrame artist and teacher. Today's project will be a big geometrical wall hanging, and I can't wait to dive in because I'm absolutely in love with the cords that I have for this. Now, if you're going to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a like. It really helps the channel to grow. And if you would like to support me even more, there is a link to my Patreon down below, so go check that out. And now let's dive in to the project. So for this macrame wall hanging, I have quite a few dowels. I have two of these 90 centimeter ones. They will be my top and bottom one. And then I have, five more that are 70 centimeters long. And you can see that they're all like different widths, but really they could all be the exact same. This is just because when I went into the store to get them, I wasn't exactly sure yet what my project will look like and what I will need. So just in case, I got different ones. But I'll talk about this later when we get to the section where we will be using them. And then the cords. My main cords will be this, which is, the color is called Magic Pink. And as you can see in the detail, it's got three different colors combined in there. It's got the natural, the blossom, and the pastel pink in it. And I also have two of the individual ones, the pink ones, so the blossom and the pastel pink, I have those as individual colors as well. So this, this is why I'm super excited for this. So that's the cords, and then for my supplies, the classic scissors and a measuring tape are always a must. I will also be using my clothing rack to put everything up, and I'll also, 99%, I'm sure I will need my hot glue gun. So those are the main tools that I will be using for today. So I will start with cutting all of the cords. So I'm going to prepare 49 cords, cut them all at the same length, and then put them on that first dowel using a lark's head knot. And then I'll show you what the plan is for the pattern. The cords are up now. I have probably like triple checked at least every single one of them to make sure the ends are actually the same. And as I am picking this one, I have noticed it's not that great on this one. So I'll have to probably just run through them again, make sure that the ends are really equal. And then I can really like tighten the knots. I actually ended up going with 43 cords only at the top because the 49, they were a little bit too dense, because I know I want the cords to be 70 centimeters across. So I think 43 looks better than the 49. So once I do my final check on the lengths, then I'll start making some square knots. And I'll do a couple rows of those across the whole section. Maybe I'm thinking like 5 to start with, and then I'll see how much more cord I have left and where we are lengthwise. So just before I started making the square knots, I realized that I can't divide 43 by 2. So I've cut it down even further to 40 cords only on the top dowel, and now it's off to making some square knots. So I'll start them from the left, and also starting with the left side cord, which is usually the side that I start with on all of my square knots. And I'm making the square knots pretty tight all the way to up here. Okay, I'll keep going like this in the entire row, and then when I get to the second row, I'll make an alternating square knot. So I'll take the 4 cords, 2 from the previous one, 2 from the other one, and then do the same thing. So the left facing square knot. Trying to make sure that these 2 gaps are the same so that the knot is kind of leveled. And then on the third row, I'll again take the 2 cords that I wasn't using in the previous row and make, once again, a square knot. Okay, and like this, I'll keep going for a few more rows. I have done 9 rows of those square knots, and that's where I think I'll leave it. You could probably see in those clips that what I kept doing almost every single row, like when I finished a row, I would take my tape measure and I would measure both of the ends and then like at some point in the middle, just to make sure that it's symmetrical. And when I saw that it was maybe off by like half a centimeter or something, I would try to like tighten them up a little bit on one side or try to loosen them on the other, just to make them as equal as possible running in a straight line. The next step will be a little bit more difficult, because what I'm going to do is a row of double half hitches, but instead of putting them on a rope, I'm going to use one of those dowels that I was showing you in the beginning. And the reason is that it's kind of like a neat trick that by putting in the dowel, you're making the line super straight. I mean, you wouldn't ever, or at least I am not able to make as straight of a line kind of going freehand with just the cord as it should look like with the dowel. So I was saying in the beginning that I'll tell you a little bit more when it comes to the dowels. So first thing, the length of the dowel. You may remember that I said this top one is 90 centimeters and all the others that I have are 70. That's A, because they didn't have 90 centimeter dowels that were this thin in the store, but also B, because I knew that on the top dowel, I will have some free space on the ends. And then, so the plan is that the straight line is only, this much, like it doesn't go all the way till the end. So I would actually need only 70 centimeters anyways. So, and if my dowels were longer than that, I would have to somehow chop them off once I'm done putting all the cords on it, which could be a little bit tricky. Of course, the thinner the dowel, the easier it is to clip off the ends, but the thinner the dowel, the more likely it is that it will be sort of bent. So I have these 2 sizes. This thinner one is 5 millimeter, which is the same size as the size of the cords. And the other one is 7 millimeters. And I can definitely see the difference that the 7 millimeter ones, they are really super straight. Whereas the 5 millimeter, I already saw, especially on like the different sticks that they had in the store, that quite a few of them had quite a bent to them, which of course then wouldn't work for this. So I was really trying to find as straight sticks as possible. So that really is the trick here. So in here, I will go with that thinner one, the 5mm. I'll add the 7mm one later. So we start off all the way on the left, and I'm going to make the first double half hitch knot, which is still the same knot. You're just doing it on a dowel instead of a piece of cord. So I'm now making the second half of it. Now the best thing to do next is to do one all the way at this other end. Okay, now that both ends are attached, I will just keep adding like at random sections more and more of the double half hitch knots.
She said I'm a free man, free to do just what I like, but I just don't seem to like what's new to me. Now I'm no one's man, and these streets that I've been walking, they make me feel like nothing. I tell my friends it's here where we begin. I say I'm better than I've ever been. It's like an inner ease that's caving in. I've never been this messed up.
So the dowel is in, and you probably saw in those clips that what I kept doing the entire time was measuring again, just to see if the dowel is really straight. And then I kept like kind of pulling on the cords, because these are braided cords, they are stretchy, which means that you can really stretch them like so a little bit. But I was being very careful because I could feel that since the rod is quite thin, it just felt like it's going to break at some point. So I wanted to be really careful about that. Now I am just warming up my hot glue gun, and I'll just put little bits of glue on the ends just in case. Like so far, they haven't slipped at all off of the little stick, but just in case, I'll put them on there. And then I am going to start adding some spiral knots. And for that, I will be using cords from the other individual colors. So I've got my blossom cord here. So I'll wrap it around the two cords that are on the end. And then I'll start making the spiral knot as if the blossom cord was just two additional cords hanging on the side. So I'll start with one half of the square knot, and then I'll keep going from that same side. Okay, so this is about 15 centimeters long, so that's where I will leave it, and that's how long I will make all of the spiral knots. And don't worry about this for now. The rest, I'll clean that up later again with the glue gun. So I've done all the spiral knots and I cleaned them up. I just cut the ends and then just glued them to the back. And now I'm going to attach the second dowel. Exactly the same way like I attached the first one, so with the double half hitch knots. And I'm gonna go first, again, this on the sides, and then all of the cords that are coming out of the spiral knots. And then I'll add all of the other cords onto it as well. One thing I forgot to mention, there are always 9 cords in between the spiral knots, except for this last section where I have 10 cords. It just didn't work out to have symmetry across the whole thing, but I don't think you can even notice. So yeah, 9 cords between each of the sections. The second dowel is in, and this one was a lot more tricky than the first one because you have so many of these cords that are just free hanging. There are no knots that would kind of stop you. You have to focus a lot more on your tension because you can pull these cords a lot tighter. And that's what started happening when I got to maybe like this point. I noticed that I'm pulling this up quite a bit, like this spiral knot is getting kind of wobbly and out of the way. So I had to go back and redo some of these knots to not tighten, what's the opposite of tight, loosen them loosen them a little bit so that the rod is not getting pulled up by all of these. So, and that's, I kind of had to keep an eye on that for the rest of the row. I ended up kind of doing like tightening the second double half hitch knot a little bit more than the first to avoid this, to avoid tightening the cords too much. And I just kept stepping away from it, checking, making sure, kind of like running my hand through this to see if none of the cords are too tight. So that's what I kept doing. Now for the next section, we are going to make a fishbone pattern. A fishbone pattern is made out of square knots, and I'll make 3 of them. So I'll show you how I'm going to do those. So I first took away these 2 cords. We'll do something else with them. And then I calculated 26 cords. So that will be one of the fishbone pattern sections. And out of those 26, we will find the 4 which are in the middle, and we will make our first square knot. So just a simple square knot going from both sides, just a regular square knot. And then for the second one, which is going to go right underneath, we will keep working with the same middle cords, but for the outer cords, I'll select the next 2 in line and leave these 2 behind. And now I'll just make another square knot right underneath. You do have to leave a bit of a gap there, otherwise it will just get a little bit crooked and not as good looking. And so like this, we continue always picking up the next 2 cords in line to work with. For these side sections, I'm doing something very, very similar like we did with the spiral knots. So I'm taking an extra piece of cord, this time it's the light pink, and I'll add it to the 2 cords in the middle and start doing a square knot, and this time it will actually be a full square knot, whereas with the spiral knot, we only do 1/2 of it. So this time, the full square knot. And then if I start adding more, it is called the Solomon bar. So this is what I'm going to create for the same length that I have the fishbone pattern, more or less, which is about 17.5 centimeters. I finished all 3 fishbone patterns and the Solomon bars, and now another bar will come on. And so when I will be putting that one on, I'll first do the sides with the square knots, and then I'll probably do these middle cords where, the square knots are ending. And then for all the rest of the cords, I'll make sure that I'm putting it on in this way. So kind of whatever cords were at the top, they kind of go like this, and they're just mirroring whatever was here. And then it's really the copy of what I did before that. So then the spiral knots will come on, and then another dowel, and then the square knots that were all the way at the top. And when I finish those, I will get back to you to explain how I'm going to add the bottom dowel.
What if I open my soul? Here I stand by myself on my own. What if I lose all control and take a step out into the unknown? Oh, oh, oh. What do I know? What's going on now? Is this another breakdown? You and me, should I let go? I do really want to know what's going on now. Is this another breakdown? You and me, should I say so? We're just putting on a show. Oh, oh, oh. What do I know?
got all of the sections finished. They look more or less the same as the other ones up there. And now for the last dowel at the bottom. It's another one of those really thick ones, the same length as well that I had all the way up there. And at first I thought I was going to add it with the vertical double half hitch knot, but I've tried it just on like 2 or 3 cords and it was very challenging and very painful and slow going. So instead I decided to do it the exact same way like I was attaching all of the others, which is with a regular double half hitch knot. So let's do that. And then what I'm going to do once they're all attached is I will actually cut all of the remaining cords very short and glue them to the back of this dowel. So onto the back of all those double half hitch knots, and then I will be done.
It's hurting, does never add up to peace. You start to wonder who's playing. Play me, play who? Lucky I'm stronger than ever. Got the arrangement to leave. You can go on and collect some memories of me.
I am done. I absolutely love the piece, but man, was this a challenging one. It definitely brought me to the next level, I feel like, with my macrame skills, because it made me really focus on making sure my knots are the same, that I have the same tension and everything. Putting in the dowels, making sure they are leveled, like that took a lot of work and attention to it. So if you want to recreate this, just know that this is definitely for advanced makers. If you do decide to make it, definitely let me know down in the comments. You can also send me a picture over on Instagram, or if you want to join our Patreon community, you can also share pictures of your work there. All the links are down below, and if you enjoyed the tutorial, give it a like, and I'll see you next week. Bye!
Fighting a battle of blaming.